Just thought I'd do a Q&A session. Getting a lot of questions, but I've just had someone email me. It says, currently I have a Canon 80D camera. It has a touch screen and a lot of other technical innovations. I am satisfied with the pictures I can make with it. At the same time, I consider buying a full frame camera only for taking pictures, but the price of the latest full frame Canon cameras is way above my budget. I saw several several footages you made with the Canon 5D, obviously not from the UK, and was impressed with the quality of the pictures. I understand that you're selling them. So I do sell Canon 5Ds, few and far between, I have to admit, because getting hold of good ones is getting harder and harder. But I do, so you can still email me and I can see if I can get hold of one for you. But more back to that question. So let's consider this. He's got an 80D camera and then he's looking to buy a 5D. Now, there's a big argument about full frame cameras versus, well, we call them crop sensor, APC size sensor cameras. Nikon make a range, smaller sensors and full frame, so do Canon. Move over to Fujifilm and they just have one single sensor. And sensor size, I get asked about all the time, so I thought I'd make a short video about sensor size and try to answer that question. To answer that question, if you have got an 80D, 70D, 60D, 50D, just think you're actually going backwards if you're getting a 5D Mark 1. Now, I know you will have watched every other video that I've got and thought, well, he's going up against everything he's saying really, because he likes Canon 5D Mark 1s. But the bottom line is that the Canon 80D, the file out of that camera is amazing. The video quality is amazing, and you don't want to be changing that camera for a 5D Mark 1 in my opinion. They've just brought out the 90D. I just saw that it's been released, and it'd be interesting to see what they've done with that camera, because the 80D was one of the best cameras ever made in my opinion, like I rate the 5D Mark 1. So answering that question, in my opinion, if you're in like the crop sensor world and you've got all your lenses, why would you go up to a 5D Mark 1? Let's just talk about sensors. I get asked all the time about sensors because most people that come on the courses I run don't even realise they've got a crop sensor. They actually, I'd say 80% of the people that come don't realise that their iPhone sensor or the camera phone sensor is a different size to their DSLR or whatever they bring along. So let's just look at that. From my point of view, I you know, when I did a lot of weddings 15 years ago, I used to use a 40D with a 70-200, and I used to use the 24-105 on the 5D Mark 1 for about 18 months really. So, you know, quite a few weddings, probably 50 or 60 weddings through that, and that's a lot of files. Now if you were to print those files, because I had the cameras, they had a very similar colour profile, everything was so similar between the 40D body and the 5D. The 40D images, a lot of people didn't like this, including myself at the time, although it wouldn't bother me now, because to be honest with you, I do like the 40D file. But at the time, when you zoomed in on the file, you would find it almost looked a bit like someone had smeared a bit of Vaseline over the lens when you took the photo. And that might sound horrendous, but for what I was doing for weddings, it was actually a very nice effect. So I do rate the 40D for portraits and weddings. So comparing the two, if you were to put all the files out from those weddings, the only way I could tell is if you looked in Lightroom and you zoomed right in on these files and you took a good look at them, or obviously look at the EXIF data and you can see the 40D information. So if I can't tell, and I'm not saying I'm, you know, Mr. Pixel Peeper, I'm not. I look at the file as a print. That's That's the main. I personally think that's what people are going wrong with, is they're actually pixel peeping and zooming right in on these files and comparing the noise level, comparing way too much. And a lot of the advice that you're seeing on YouTube, I watch a lot of the testing that's going on. Just think to yourself, how is it possible that they would know the results of all these different cameras? You would need to be out in all different lighting conditions. You know, you'd have to test these cameras to death. And I appreciate some of the YouTubers are testing them very well. But just bear in mind that when you get in the real world and you're actually out there on the side of a hill, landscape photography or macro photography, whatever you're doing, the difference between these files when you finally print them is very small. I've said this in other videos, but when people come to my home, when we do tutorials at, you know, my place, there's a massive print on the wall of a sunflower with a bee landing on this sunflower. And the first question I ask them, if they come in with a lot of equipment, usually, you know, £2,000 plus worth of equipment, not hard to do today, £3,000, £4,000 worth, as I say to them, I say that photo is actually sold in an image library, Alamy, all around the world, sold really well. And what camera do you think I used? And every single one of them says either the 5D or the 1DS Mark II and a 24-70 zoom lens. And I say that was a Canon 350D with a 50mm lens on it. And to go out and buy that today, if I went to London Camera Exchange or somewhere and went to buy it second hand, could probably get the two for about £130. That's the 50mm lens and the body, and the file printed on the wall at 2 or 4, it was 400 ISO actually, is amazing. And if we put then the 5D file next to that from a similar era, you wouldn't know the difference, to be honest. If I processed both files the same, you wouldn't know the difference. Now comment below. I know everyone says comment below. If you're watching this on a TV, it always annoys me when they say that, comment below. But get on the computer, and I'd like to hear what you think about sensor size. If you're a photographer, you know, where you're doing thousands of images like I've done, you know, I put a lot of files through Lightroom, hopefully you'll be saying, you might agree with me on this, that these cameras haven't come that far. And the crop sensor versus the full frame sensor, for the majority of the time, outdoors general photography, I'm not saying stuck in a, you know, the back of a dark church trying to do ISO 6400 or 3200. I'm talking average photography that the average person's doing. I don't personally think there's a lot between these cameras. So when we go over from that, so I think APC size sensor, or APS, whatever, APC, isn't it? The smaller sensor, which is in the 60D range, 70D, 80D, and is in the 350D, 450D, you know, all the way up to there's the new 200D, 250D. That smaller sensor, the difference between the two now, or even 10 years ago, was very, very small. Now where you do see a difference is when you leap from a full frame sensor down to something like a, well, let's see, do the obvious one, an iPhone sensor. But what I'm looking at with the iPhone, and I rate the iPhone, if you were to put the best cameras up there, this might surprise you, but the iPhone is right up there at the top, above some of the £3,000-4,000 cameras, purely and simply because when it's in your pocket, you're going to use it. So you're going to come back with more photos. I love using my iPhone. So, or camera phone, whatever, Android, whatever you're using, they're all the same to me. So let's see that jump. What's happening there? So let's talk about Apple's colour. The colour is better than, you know, most of the cameras I'm seeing, I'll be quite honest with you. So look at the greens, look at the blue, start analysing that file, and then people zoom in on it and they see some noise, and it's usually because they're inside, and noise can be a problem with the tiny little sensor, but through software and processing in camera, that's what Apple sorted out for you. So you know, the iPhone is starting to look okay. What we get with the iPhone compared to a crop sensor, and you know, I do this all the time, but imagine we've got a massive sensor and we're seeing the whole scene, and then a tiny weeny little sensor. It's a bit like having a telephoto lens, and this is going to be hard to think about, but a telephoto lens on a wide angle lens. So your perspective is actually compression. So if this is a tree with the camera here, this makes sense, and the tree and then the sky, so an iPhone compresses everything even though you've got a wide angle lens. And that is something that people don't realize and they don't really pick up on. At the time I really picked up on it was I was taking a simple photo and I wanted it as a measurement at my house, to be honest with you, from A to B, and so I could visually look back and worked out where a pipe was underground. Took it with the iPhone, got this photo up on the screen. Because it compressed the scene so much due to the tiny sensor, it was very hard to work out where it was. And I suddenly realised that one thing that the iPhone and these camera phones are doing is compressing everything. Now with your larger sensor, your full frame sensor, what it tends to do is make things feel like they're further apart. Tree, sky. So perspective is a massive thing. And very important in photography. Now people think that as a massive negative, and it can be. I took a picture of my wife the other day with my little boy, and with a beach scene in the background. It was a wide angle lens, so you saw the whole scene, and it compressed it, and it actually made them look like it was a poster and they were stood in front of a poster of a beach scene. It compressed it that much, even though it was a wide angle lens. And as you probably know, I don't know if you do, but wide angle lenses tend to make things look further apart. So in other words, if you've got some mountains, you put a wide angle lens on, they tend to look smaller, the mountains in the background, and then the sky looks further away. It's just a perspective thing. So bear that in mind. So what I'd like you to do is start taking pictures with your iPhone and taking pictures with your DSLR, whether it's APC or whatever camera you've got, because it will always be a bigger sensor really than your camera phone, your iPhone, and just start comparing what you like. Now someone can't tell you what you like, and that's the real problem I have with a lot of the channels at the moment. It's almost like they're telling you what you should like. So you should buy a full frame lens. You've got an 80D, now you should buy a 5D. It's nonsense, to be honest with you. The magic formula for what you like is actually putting the lens on a body or an iPhone, whatever, pulling it together and start using it, and you will get to this point where you like something, and when you do like it, don't sell it. The combination I've got to in this video, I never thought I'd hang on to a Samsung camera ever. It's absolutely perfect for what I'm doing, and it's brilliant. Got the tilt screen. So with your equipment, start, you know, I'm going to give a lot more equipment advice. People seem more interested in equipment than they do in photography, and I know they are linked, but I think that people spend a bit too much time thinking about equipment and not enough about photography. And when I'm talking about perspective, I'm talking about photography. So comment below. I know it's a bit of a ramble, but what I'm trying to do is get you talking and commenting on this video, and ask the questions in the comments, because we've got to start looking at, you know, why we're buying these cameras. What is the reason for parting with £3,000 on a new Sony camera? Is there any need to? Am I gaining anything? Should I spend money on that brand new lens when my iPhone lens is optically one of the best lenses I've ever seen? You know, and I mean that. Start looking at these cameras and start looking at perspective. Again, completely tell me I'm wrong in the comments below, and start looking at what you're using, and we'll leave it at that, and we'll do another video soon. Okay, thanks a lot.